But for a man, before he can obtain those two things, perhaps he must come upon one other precious thing. One other precious thing? For no other's sake, to accomplish it for him himself. A dream. Dream? One who dreams of world domination, one who devotes his life to the thorough tempering of one sword. If there's a dream that takes his whole life to find, there are also dreams which, like storms, devour tens of thousands of other dreams. With no relation to social status, class, background, whether it suits them or not, people yearn for a dream. Sustained by a dream, hurt by a dream, revived by a dream, killed by a dream. And even after being abandoned by a dream, it continues to smolder from the bottom of one's heart, probably until the verge of death. A man should envision such a lifetime once, a life spent as a martyr, to find the god named Dream. Now that's a very interesting choice of words there. But before we get into the symbolism and the nitty-gritty of what this means, we have to acknowledge one thing in the Berserk universe. It is very harsh, brutal, and macabre. It involves a lot of death, pain, suffering, and rape. People need something to believe in, whether that be a dream, the holy sea, or something else. Without such beliefs, what else do we have? And if someone doesn't believe in anything, they're oftentimes left in a nihilistic despair. Now in the Berserk universe, everyone believes in this sort of god, if you will. For Casca, the god was Griffith. She even describes him as something that was painted on a mural, someone that was above everyone else, someone that was grander than life itself. And when she saw Griffith be defeated by Guts, she realized something that day. Griffith was not infallible. He was not a god, and he was not something that Casca could believe in anymore. Having lost her quote-unquote god, she began to doubt herself. She began to wonder what life was all about, and she fell into a deep pit of despair. It wasn't until she put her faith in Guts and became his heart, as it were, that she felt a purpose once again, that she had meaning in her life, and that she had a new quote-unquote god to believe in. For Griffith, his god was the dream. It was this unattainable image in his head. He knew that he came from common background. He knew that he was not born in the aristocracy, and he knew his chances of rising the ranks might be limited. There might be a point at which he could go no further. But yet he dreamed the dream, because it's what sustained him. It's because he had nothing else in this world. But again, like Casca, when that quote-unquote god died, he also died inside, and became a mere shell of his former self. And more so than having his body tortured in the Midland torture chambers, his mind was tortured. In fact, even before the Midland torture chambers, we saw that he was going through a lot of emotional distress after having sex with Charlotte. And in fact, even during his time with Charlotte, he was thinking of Guts the entire time. Now, why was this? Simply put, Guts was the man who took away his dream. Guts was the man that killed his quote-unquote god. And so, Griffith hated him. Even though he didn't express it at first, it became quite obvious later on at the eclipse. God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we console ourselves? The most murderous of all murderers. There was never a greater event, and on account of it, all who are born after us belong to a higher history than any history before this. And as I alluded to earlier in this video, God takes many forms. For some people, it's the metaphysical God. For others, they replace God with a Messianic figure, like Casca did with Griffith and what Farnese did for Guts. Others still place their faith and their fortitude in objects, as is the case with Guts. For him, his sword is a god. It is something that imbues strength, confidence, and fortitude in his spirit. It is something that has given him light in the darkest nights. It has given him warmth when he felt cold at night. It is the only thing in the world that has given him self-assurance and confidence in himself. And in this perspective, it makes sense why Griffith did what he did. Because for Griffith, his dream was taken away, his god was taken away. And when that shattered under his feet, he had nothing. It would have been better if Guts had killed him instead. But rather, Griffith was left to wallow in a pit of despair. And he thought by raping Casca, killing all his comrades, that would have done the same thing to Guts. But no, even though Guts was angry, even though Guts was depressed and very pissed off, he still had his sword. He still had some confidence, that little gleaming light. something Griffith never had in the Midland torture chambers. So Griffith needed to take that away from him. He needed to put him in that same pit of despair, make him feel that same hopelessness that he felt. And the only way to do that was to make Guts feel like his sword was ineffective, that it no longer had the answer to all of life's problems.
But this does not mean that life is all in vain. Life begins on the other side of despair. Now, in a world where God is dead, Nietzsche feared that the whole moral system and the mechanism for value creation would collapse onto itself. Altruism, compassion, love for your fellow man would all fall by the wayside if there were no value system that kept people together, kept people in check, as it were. Naturally, with people's core beliefs shaken to its very core, pessimism would ensue, morality would fall by the wayside, and a descent into chaos and meaninglessness would ensue. When Rosine lost her faith in fairies, she became an apostle, a harbinger of death. When Griffith lost faith in his dream, he became a member of the God Hand, someone who would just rape Casca and kill all his former members of the Band of the Hawk without a second's thought. When the Count lost faith in his marriage, he ended up killing his wife. And this is what Nietzsche feared most of all. Without some sort of religion or God or value system, how would we live with ourselves? What could we do to raise our spirits? And this is the very question that Guts has to ask himself. Now that he's lost faith in his sword, he is in that nihilistic despair. He is on the verge of throwing everything by the wayside and embracing the savagery of his internal beast of darkness. The Baelit in his possession may be the impetus for this event. Now that he's effectively primed, now that he's at the lowest of lows, now that he doesn't have any more beliefs in the natural world, he may give in to pure evil. However, I think there may be a way out, and it lies with Shirka and the other magicians. A church is a sanctuary where people communicate with angels or spirits. A magician constructs a sanctuary within her own mind. And so in this regard, one must believe in themselves. But to do this is not as simple as flipping a switch. It requires a transformation. It requires a process of going through ups and downs, a journey of self-discovery, and an embrace of necessary evil. This doesn't mean giving in to evil, it means just confronting it, being able to override it and get past it. Some people, at the first signs of hardship, give in to the pain, give in to the suffering, and give in to the evil. But if you use the suffering to complement yourself, to see it all part of the process, then you're all the much better for it. Suffering is the origin of consciousness. To become greater in life, to become a better person, you must embrace the suffering. It's all parts and parcel of the whole. And those who beg for a way out, and those who do not want to embrace the suffering, become literal and metaphorical monsters. So Guts' task is simple at this point. He must embrace the suffering, find a new path, and embrace the transformation that's about to begin within himself. If he does not, he will allow the beast of darkness to take hold of him, just like it took hold of the Skull Knight, and just like it took hold of so many people who were unable to face up to life's challenges.